Good morning, and welcome to Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion with me, Pastor Amanda. We are in Exodus chapter 10, and we are now on the eighth and ninth plagues. I mean, if you thought there couldn't be any more, yes, there are more. So, once again, we continue to look at this play out, this process that's happening with Pharaoh and with God, with Yahweh. And it really takes hold in this chapter that the Lord has hardened his heart and the hearts of his officials. So it's this sense that God is going to show God's power throughout all of Egypt. And in order to do that, it takes the resistance of the establishment to be able to completely free the Israelite people. So we continue to see this back and forth playing out in here. So the eighth plague is the plague of the locusts. And we do find out here, I mean, it's kind of, if you kind of start to tear apart what's going on in here, you have the moment where it says the officials' hearts are hardened, but there's this moment where the officials go, "Our land is already devastated, Pharaoh. Like, just let these people go. Like let them go." And yet, we find that so there's this kind of back and forth. What's really going on here? Because the officials recognize, um, they because they actually say in verse 7, "Do you not yet understand that Egypt is ruined?" And so what happens then is Pharaoh has this little conversation with Moses. Well, who's going to go? And Moses is like, everybody's going. What are you talking about? Everybody's going to go worship. And Pharaoh's like, no, no. You could take the adult men, but not the children, or not the women, And we do have to remember contextually that at this point in time, children and women are still considered commodities. And I mean, that's hard for our minds today to sometimes to grasp onto. But we do recognize that Pharaoh understands that if the children go, there's no desire for them to come back. The children are technically the profit for his economy in the future because those children will become slaves also. So there's a lot going on here into play, but we're going to see how, I mean, in the Old Testament, we do see how children have a tendency to be more of a commodity and less of a human being. But at this time, Pharaoh's treating all of Israel as a commodity and not as people. So, it's hard to read sometimes, but if we kind of try to look at the bigger picture that's happening here, we can keep moving forward and not drown in some of the differences in cultures that are going on. So, of course, Pharaoh goes, "No, never. That's not going to happen." And so, of course, then the locusts come through and devastate the land. And then Pharaoh goes, "Oh, I have sinned. Please forgive me." He does his big old show about how he's wrong. And then, of course, the locusts go away. And then his heart is hardened again by the Lord. And so then the next plague to come over is complete darkness over the land. And so Pharaoh goes back into this bartering place where he's like, well, okay, I'll let everybody go, but the flocks and the herds and all of the animals have to stay here. And of course, Moses was like, no. We're all going because we don't know what animal will be best to be sacrificed until we get there. So it's got to be all of us. I mean, everything, our herds and everything. And of course, Pharaoh is like, no, 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 no. And so here we are then coming to the end of chapter 10. And Pharaoh's heart is hardened once again. and unwilling to let them go. And it's kind of this interesting little thing, but it's the kind of, we've got through this repetition of how things are going. And so everybody's got this idea of what's happening. And so now we have verse 28. And so we're going to have a tiny little shift here. And then Pharaoh said to him, "Get away from me. Take care that you do not see my face again. For on that day you see my face, you shall die." Moses said, "Just as you say, I will never see your face again." I have to admit, I hear two teenagers talking to each other right there, but it's fine. You do not want to see my face again. And so we know that something's shifted. It's kind of like we're at the end now. We're gonna have something going on here because the anger and the frustration has just built up now, and so we see we that's kind of our signal as to what's gonna happen next in a way. But again, this is all about showing God's power to be stronger than the establishment, that God's on the side of those who are oppressed. And we're just reminded of that again. And so we just kind of take heed to that. Where are we in helping God or hurting God? How are we experiencing the same things that are going on here? And of course, the question I've been asking all week, where do our hearts need to be unhardened themselves? And so we can continue that today. And then tomorrow, we're actually going to get to the last plague for that. And it'll be a little short, but it's okay. We've kind of gotten into the groove. So I hope that you can find ways to soften your heart this day and welcome all of God's creative beauty into your life in the midst of everything else going on. So, thanks for joining me, Pastor Amanda, with Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion, and I'll see you tomorrow.